And we are live again. Hello, everybody. Happy um, New Year to some of you that I haven't uh, maybe you haven't come across our content. Happy New Year to you. I know it's February, but it is still safe to say Happy New Year, especially if we haven't met before. So, on today's content is going to be about, or want to talk about the definition of ready and definition of done. I know you've heard it a whole lot of times, but this is a very beautiful moment for us to discuss about the definition of ready and the definition of done. What is that difference? Because I know that a whole lot of times some people get confused with the difference. So, what difference exists between these two? Is it the same? Is definition of ready the same as definition of done? It is absolutely not. There's no way it can be the same, right? So, but before we get into the content, we want to give a big shout out to our returning viewers and subscribers. You are amazing, and we thank you for everything. We can't thank you enough. We are very grateful because you are actually the reason, or one of the reasons why we come back to create content. So hopefully, this is helpful for you. Sorry, and one thing we would like you to do is to engage on the content by maybe commenting, asking questions, or communicating your own experience as well. We adore things like that. So if you haven't done so, please do so. And if there's any content you want us to create, any topic whatsoever regarding Agile and its frameworks, please go ahead and communicate that. Use the comment section for that. I will make sure that we give you that particular thing that you've requested for. So thank you so very much. All right, on our content today, what is the difference between definition of ready and definition of done? Just as it sounds, I always like to use maybe a layman kind of scenario for better understanding. Take, for instance, that you're planning for a wedding. Now, this wedding we want to plan for, we are doing this because, we want to achieve a particular goal. The goal that we intend to achieve, that one is going to be called the definition of done, because those are like criterias that needs to be satisfied for us to say, okay, we've actually achieved this particular goal of, this wedding. Now, before getting into this goal, there are other aspects. There are things that are planned that needs to be in place for this particular goal to be achieved. So when it comes to wedding, we have different roles that people play. Maybe the flower girl, the caterers. We have the bridesmaid, the groomsmen, and all whatnot. The people that provide the drinks, and other aspects that needs to be planned for, or that needs to be in place for this particular goal to be achieved. Now, what happens is when we're talking about definition of ready, if people say that, or if I say that I am ready for this particular wedding, what does that imply? Take, for instance, that I'm a bridesmaid, right? So, or chief bridesmaid, let me put it that way. If I'm a chief bridesmaid, that means if I say I am ready, that means that I have my outfits on, I have done my makeup, so I am fully groomed, I have fully dressed, and like I'm ready to start the show or to start carrying out my activity as a chief bridesmaid or as a bridesmaid. So that is the definition of ready. So definition of ready in short is ability to fully acquire or fully follow the requirements that needs to be in place for us to say that, okay, we can get this going. So this thing can actually start happening because we have actually check mark all the requirements that needs to be in place. So I am ready to start doing my chief bridesmaid role because I am fully dressed. Everything is okay. I am okay. Now, when it comes to the definition of done, in this case, my definition of done would be for me to ensure that maybe the bride is not sweating, because if a bride has to sweat, I have to make sure that I part the sweat. That way, the bride is glowing and she looks good pretty much. I am there to hold her dress so that, she doesn't probably step on it by mistake and fall. I am there to ensure that, if there's anything that is making her not to be as happy as she's supposed to be for this particular wedding, I am there to guard against that. So I am removing any impediment whatsoever at that point, and I'm putting that smile on her face so she can keep glowing. So once all this check mark are done, at the end of it all, we want to see that, okay, this particular bride is happy at the end of, this, or throughout the entire ceremony. We want to ensure that the bride is happy, and that at the end of it all, the bride can comfortably say, all right, maybe Jermaine, for instance, who was my chief bridesmaid, did a great job. So she was able to hold my dress, and there was never a time that maybe I stepped on my dress by mistake. So there was never a time that I was sweating. There was never a time I felt uncomfortable. There was never a time that, there was never a time that I didn't feel the joy of the occasion. So those list, or the acceptance criteria in this case, needs to be satisfied for her to say that, okay, Jermaine, you did a very wonderful job. And it ends the entire stuff, or it ends the entire show. So just to say that in a very short word, the difference between definition of ready and definition of done simply means that, so with the definition of ready, there are certain requirements that needs to be met for us to say that a work items or work item is actually ready for the team to embark on. In this case, in an agile environment, we'll talk about typical simple examples that I can quickly think of for definition of ready will be, okay, the user story has a detailed breakdown. For instance, it has a description, it has acceptance criteria, it has been sized. So the team has gone through estimation exercise where each and every one contribute to the work, like to this particular, to assigning a particular story point to each and every user story. So they are all on the same page. So these criteria have been satisfied, and the team members are like, okay, this particular work is ready to be pulled into the next sprint. We can actually embark on this work. So that is the definition of ready. With definition of done, these are criterias, or we call them acceptance criteria, a checklist of things that needs to be met for us to say, okay, this work is done. For instance, a customer gives us a particular maybe work item to get done. In this case, maybe a user story. What happens is each and every user story is going to have a checklist, like what we call acceptance criteria. What can we actually say? What can we say, or what can we actually look back onto to say this work is actually completed? So in this case, what happens is there are going to be a series of check marks or acceptance criteria that once the team say the work is complete, so they're going to take a look at this acceptance criteria. Okay, does this satisfy checklist number one? Does this satisfy checklist number two? Take for instance that we have like 5 checklists of acceptance criteria. We want to make sure all of these checklists are met. If it's partially met, then that's not yet met the definition of ready. Definition of done, sorry. So, but if everything is satisfied, that means we can comfortably call it we can comfortably say that it is done. So in this case, it meets the definition of done. So I hope that with the example of the wedding that I talked about, I don't know why I like talking about wedding a whole lot, but I hope with the example of the wedding that I gave, you can kind of coin the differences between definition of ready and the definition of done. So when you go for an interview, just make sure that you know a clear, so you can actually distinguish between the two, because I know a whole lot of people kind of define them to be the same. So you want to make sure that you're giving a clear distinction between those two. So I hope that was helpful. And again, this is the Academy of Agility, where we create content regarding agile methodology or agile mindset and framework. And we highly recommend that you equally communicate what your experience is, because again, we are learning. We learn every day. There's never a time in this life I'll say I have stopped learning, because it's a continuous process. So long as we are living, the market demands out there is changing every blessed day. So there's need for us to continuously do research, continuously learn, and to also share it with other people. And mind you, this is actually based on our experience. So it's not something that you must adopt. So what you can do is, if it makes sense to you, okay, you can go ahead and utilize it. If not, please drop it. All right. Thank you so very much. And we hope to see you on our next content. And remember to enjoy your weekend. Bye. And thank you, everyone.